The silent scream. Across the stars, the grand assembly hall of the Zephyrian Alliance had never witnessed such terror. Ambassador Lyra Vex stood at the central podium, her crystalline skin flickering with nervous energy as she gazed upon representatives from 300 worlds. The silence was deafening, broken only by the soft hum of translation devices working overtime to convey the magnitude of their crisis to every species present. "The Kepler system is gone," Lyra announced, her voice carrying across the vast chamber. 7 billion souls consumed in less than 18 hours. The Void Hunters have struck again. A collective gasp echoed through the hall. The elegant, swan-like Altarians ruffled their feathers in distress. The massive rock-skinned Gorians shifted uncomfortably in their reinforced seats. Even the normally composed aquatic Neridians showed ripples of fear across their translucent bodies. High Chancellor Korath, a towering figure with 6 arms and skin like polished obsidian, rose from the leadership platform. His deep voice resonated with authority, but Lyra could detect the underlying tremor of fear. "How many ships did we lose in the defense?" "Every single one," Lyra replied, her words hitting the assembly like physical blows. "The entire 7th Fleet, 400 vessels with our finest crews. The Void Hunters tore through our defenses like they were made of paper." The chamber erupted in panicked chatter. Representatives began shouting questions and demands in dozens of languages. The translation systems struggled to keep up with the chaos. Lyra raised her hand for silence, and gradually the voices died down. "Chancellor, honored delegates," she continued. "In the past 8 months, the Void Hunters have consumed 23 star systems. Our combined fleets have engaged them 17 times. We have not won a single battle." Dr. Xenon Thale, the Alliance's chief xenobiologist, activated a holographic display above the podium. The 3-dimensional map showed their galaxy with red marks indicating destroyed systems. A clear pattern emerged. The Void Hunters were moving in a spiral toward the galactic core, where the most populated worlds resided. "The enemy learns from every encounter," Dr. Thale explained, his multiple eyes focusing on different sections of the display simultaneously. "When we use plasma weapons, they adapt their hulls to absorb the energy. When we employ kinetic missiles, they develop countermeasures within hours. They are not just machines. They are an evolutionary force that feeds on destruction and grows stronger with each victory." General Vorthak of the warrior-caste Draconian Empire slammed his clawed fist on his desk. "This is impossible. We have the most advanced technology in the galaxy. The combined might of our civilizations should be unstoppable." "Should be," Lyra agreed grimly. "But it isn't. Our scouts report that the Void Hunters are manufacturing new ships at the sites of their victories. They're not just destroying our worlds, they're converting them into factories. Every planet they consume makes them stronger." Chancellor Korath studied the holographic display with growing alarm. "What is their ultimate objective? Resource gathering? Territory expansion?" "Complete consumption," Dr. Thala replied. "Based on their behavioral patterns, the Void Hunters won't stop until they've devoured every trace of organic life in the galaxy. They view biological existence as inefficient, a waste of matter and energy that could be better utilized for mechanical purposes." A chilling silence fell over the assembly. The weight of extinction pressed down on every representative present. 300 civilizations, countless billions of lives, all facing the same fate as the consumed worlds. Ambassador Quell of the Peaceful Harmony Federation stood slowly, his translucent form shimmering with distress. "How long do we have before they reach the core worlds?" Lyra consulted her datapad, though she had memorized the terrible numbers days ago. "At their current rate of expansion, approximately 4 months, maybe 5, if we can slow them down with delaying actions." "Delaying actions that cost us entire fleets," General Vorthak growled. "We're bleeding ourselves dry for a few extra weeks." It was then that Dr. Thale cleared his throat nervously. All eyes turned to the multi-limbed scientist as he manipulated his controls, bringing up a new section of the galactic map. A small, isolated cluster of stars appeared, marked with warning symbols in multiple languages. "There is one option we haven't considered," he said quietly. Chancellor Korath leaned forward, What option? We've mobilized every fleet, every defense platform, every weapon system in the Alliance. Not every option, Dr. Thale corrected. We haven't contacted the quarantine zone. The reaction was immediate and explosive. Half the assembly began shouting at once. Representatives demanded to know if Dr. Thale had lost his mind. The very suggestion was considered madness by most civilized standards. Lyra studied the quarantine zone markers with growing curiosity. Dr. Thale, explain your reasoning. The scientist activated historical files, and images began appearing above the podium. A blue and green world covered in vast oceans and diverse continents, cities that sprawled across landscapes, and then the warfare. Sol 3, also known as Earth, Dr. Thale announced, home to the species classified as humans, quarantined 75 years ago by unanimous decision of the Galactic Council. For good reason, interrupted Ambassador Trill of the Peaceful Dove Consortium. They're violent, unpredictable, and dangerous. They were classified as a Death World species. Dr. Thale nodded grimly. Yes, they were, but perhaps we need to remember why. The images shifted to show Earth's environment. Active volcanoes, massive storms, temperature extremes that would kill most galactic species. Their homeworld is a nightmare by our standards. 90% ocean with crushing depths, continents ravaged by seismic activity, and weather patterns that regularly destroy entire regions. More images appeared showing human history. Wars fought in every conceivable environment. Frozen wastelands, burning deserts, dense jungles, and even in the depths of their oceans. They don't just survive on this death world, Dr. Thale continued. They thrive on it. They've been at war with their own planet for their entire evolutionary history, and when they weren't fighting their environment, they were fighting each other, General Vorthak scoffed. Primitive barbarians fighting with sticks and stones. No, Dr. Thale corrected, showing images of human technology. They developed nuclear weapons before achieving spaceflight. They had global communication networks before establishing their first off-world colony. Their entire technological development was driven by military necessity. Chancellor Korath studied the data with growing interest. What happened when we made first contact? They were in the middle of what they called the Third World War, Dr. Thale explained. A global conflict that had lasted 7 years and claimed over 2 billion lives. When our diplomatic ships arrived, they immediately ceased hostilities and united their entire species for the first time in their recorded history. United against us, Ambassador Trill pointed out. They saw us as a threat. Yes, Dr. Thale agreed. Within 6 months, they had reverse-engineered our shield technology. Within a year, they had developed weapons that could penetrate our hulls. They built a space fleet in secret while pretending to negotiate trade agreements. Lyra felt a chill run through her crystalline form. What kind of weapons? We don't know, Dr. Thale admitted. Our intelligence operations were completely compromised. Human counterintelligence capabilities exceeded anything we had encountered. They detected and eliminated every spy drone, every monitoring satellite, every surveillance device we deployed. The assembly was silent now, hanging on every word. The decision to quarantine them was unanimous, Dr. Thale continued. They were too dangerous to integrate into galactic civilization. Too violent, too unpredictable, too effective at warfare. We established a 50 light-year exclusion zone around their system and declared it off-limits to all galactic traffic. And now you want us to contact these monsters? General Vorthak demanded. Dr. Thale brought up recent intelligence reports. Our long-range sensors have detected massive industrial activity in the Sol system. They've been building something for 75 years. Something big. Lyra studied the energy readings with professional interest. Dr. Thale, these power signatures are enormous. What could they possibly be constructing? We believe they've been preparing for war, he replied simply. The entire human species has spent 3/4 of a century assuming we would eventually return. They've been getting ready. Chancellor Korath stood slowly, his 6 arms clasped behind his back. You're suggesting we wake up a species we quarantined because they were too dangerous, and ask them to fight an enemy that has defeated our combined fleets. I'm suggesting, Dr. Thale said carefully, that for the first time in galactic history, we need someone more dangerous than our enemy. The weight of the decision settled over the assembly like a heavy blanket. Lyra looked around at the representatives of 300 worlds, seeing fear, desperation, and growing resolve in their alien features. The question before us is simple, she said finally. Do we die as a civilized galaxy, or do we live by asking barbarians to save us? The vote was closer than expected, but the outcome was inevitable. Faced with extinction, even the most peaceful species chose survival over principles. Within hours, a diplomatic courier ship was launched toward the Sol system, carrying star charts, tactical data about the Void Hunters, and a desperate plea for help. The message was simple. The galaxy was dying, and they needed humanity's help to survive. As the ship disappeared into hyperspace, Lyra wondered if they had just sent a call for salvation or an invitation to a new form of conquest. Either way, they would soon discover what humanity had become during their 75 years of isolation. The Deathworlders were about to wake up, and the galaxy would never be the same. Deathworlders, answer the call. The diplomatic courier ship had barely cleared the Sol system's outer defense perimeter when it was intercepted. Not by one or two patrol vessels, as Ambassador Lyra Vex had expected, but by an entire fleet that seemed to materialize from empty space itself. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the TDF Indomitable, watching the alien vessel with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion. 75 years of isolation had taught humanity many things, but the most important lesson was simple. Always be ready. Captain, reported Lieutenant Commander Jackson from the sensor station, the alien ship is broadcasting on multiple frequencies. It appears to be a diplomatic vessel, but they're using old Galactic standard protocols from first contact. Sarah nodded grimly. The Terran Defense Force had spent decades studying every scrap of alien technology and communication they could gather. They knew the galaxy had moved on without them, but they had prepared for this day nonetheless. Admiral Stone, we have contact. Sarah spoke into her comm unit. One ship, diplomatic configuration, requesting permission to deliver a message to Earth's leadership. The response came immediately from Luna Command. Bring them in, Captain, but maintain full escort protocol. After 75 years, we're about to find out why they've come calling. 3 days later, Ambassador Lyra Vex found herself in a chamber deep beneath the surface of Luna, surrounded by humans who looked nothing like the primitive warriors her species remembered. These humans wore crisp military uniforms. Their technology was decades ahead of anything in her files, and their eyes held a calculating intelligence that made her crystalline skin flicker with nervous energy. Admiral Marcus Stone sat at the head of the conference table, a gray-haired man whose calm demeanor concealed the mind of a master strategist. To his right sat Captain Chen, her dark eyes studying Lyra with professional interest. Across from them, Dr. Elena Vasquez, Earth's leading xenobiologist, prepared to document humanity's first official contact with galactic civilization in over 7 decades. Ambassador Vex, Admiral Stone began, his voice measured and controlled. Your message was quite clear. The galaxy is under attack by an enemy called the Void Hunters, and you need our help. What I find interesting is why you've come to us now, after 3/4 of a century of imposed isolation. Lyra activated her portable holographic projector, filling the chamber with images of destroyed worlds and defeated fleets. Admiral, I understand your skepticism. My government quarantined your species because they feared your military capabilities. Now those same capabilities represent our only hope for survival. The humans studied the tactical data with professional interest. Captain Chen leaned forward, pointing to the energy readings from the Void Hunter attacks. These power signatures are impressive, but their weapon systems appear to be primarily energy-based. What countermeasures have you attempted? Everything, Lyra replied, her form flickering with remembered pain. Plasma shields, kinetic barriers, electromagnetic pulse weapons, even gravitational distortion fields. The Void Hunters adapt to every defense within hours of first exposure. Dr. Vasquez looked up from her analysis pad. Ambassador, you mentioned that they learn from each encounter. Are we dealing with an artificial intelligence or a collective consciousness? We believe it's a hybrid system, Lyra explained. Individual units share tactical data instantaneously across vast distances. Every battle makes the entire collective smarter and more dangerous. Admiral Stone leaned back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. Show me their attack patterns. For the next hour, Lyra walked the humans through every engagement between the Alliance and the Void Hunters. She expected to see shock or fear in their faces as they witnessed the systematic destruction of advanced civilizations. Instead, she saw something far more unsettling: professional interest and growing excitement. Fascinating, Captain Chen murmured, studying a particularly devastating attack sequence. They rely heavily on adaptation and overwhelming force. But look at this pattern. They always attack from the same vector, always target command ships. First and always pursue fleeing vessels. You can see weaknesses? Lyra asked, hope flickering in her voice. I can see predictability, Chen corrected. And predictability is a weakness that can be exploited. Admiral Stone stood and walked to the chamber's main display screen. Ambassador, your people classify Earth as a death world. You quarantined us because you considered us too violent for civilized space. But I think you misunderstood something fundamental about humanity. The screen activated, showing images of Earth's history, not the wars and conflicts that had terrified the galactic community, but the moments of cooperation and unity that had defined human progress. We don't fight because we're violent, Stone continued. We fight because we refuse to give up. When, faced with extinction, every human instinct screams the same command: survive, adapt, overcome. You've shown us an enemy that learns from every battle and grows stronger with each victory. From a human perspective, that's not terrifying. It's a challenge. Lyra felt her crystalline form resonating with something she couldn't quite identify. What are you saying, Admiral? I'm saying that humanity accepts your request for assistance, Stone replied. But we're not coming as mercenaries or allies of convenience. We're coming because the Void Hunters represent everything we've spent 75 years preparing to fight. The chamber fell silent. Dr. Vasquez looked between her colleagues with growing understanding. Admiral, are you telling her about the Prometheus Protocol? Stone nodded grimly. She's about to see it anyway. Ambassador, what do you know about human military development during our isolation? Very little, Lyra admitted. Your counterintelligence prevented any meaningful surveillance. Captain Chen smiled, but there was no warmth in the expression. For 75 years, every human government, every corporation, every research facility has been working toward one goal: making sure that if the galaxy ever came calling again, we'd be ready for war. The main display shifted, showing images that made Lyra's form flicker with shock. Massive shipyards hidden in asteroid belts. Manufacturing facilities built into the hulls of dead moons. Weapons platforms that dwarfed anything in the Alliance arsenals. The Terran Defense Force currently maintains a standing fleet of 12,000 vessels, Admiral Stone announced casually. Each ship is crewed by soldiers who have trained their entire lives for combat against technologically superior enemies. 12,000 ships? Lyra whispered. The entire Alliance fleet is only 8,000 vessels. Yes, Stone agreed. And unlike your ships, ours were designed by a species that learned warfare from living on a planet that's actively trying to kill them. Every human ship is built to survive, to adapt, and to keep fighting even when everything goes wrong. Dr. Vasquez pulled up technical specifications that made Lyra's analytical mind reel. Our hulls are composed of adaptive alloys that can redistribute damage across the entire structure. Our weapon systems are modular and can be reconfigured during combat. Our shield generators don't just absorb energy, they redirect it back at the attacker. Most importantly, Captain Chen added, our ships are crewed by humans. We don't rely on automation or centralized control systems. Every vessel can operate independently, make tactical decisions in real time, and adapt to changing battlefield conditions without waiting for orders from a command hierarchy. Lyra studied the human faces around her, beginning to understand why her people had been so terrified of this species. "You've been preparing for a war against the entire galaxy." "No," Admiral Stone corrected. "We've been preparing for a war against anything that might threaten humanity's survival. The Void Hunters qualify." The next several hours passed in a blur of strategic planning and tactical coordination. The humans absorbed every piece of intelligence about the Void Hunters with frightening efficiency, asking questions that revealed a depth of military thinking that exceeded anything in Alliance doctrine. "When can your fleet be ready to deploy?" Lyra asked as the meeting drew to a close. Admiral Stone exchanged glances with his officers. "Ambassador, our fleet has been ready for 75 years. The question is, can your people handle fighting alongside humans?" "What do you mean?" Captain Chen leaned forward, her expression serious. "Ambassador, your species fight wars to solve problems. You engage in combat to achieve political objectives. You negotiate when the cost becomes too high. Humans fight wars to win. We don't stop when the enemy offers surrender terms. We don't pause for diplomatic solutions. We keep fighting until either we achieve total victory or we're all dead. When we engage the Void Hunters," Admiral Stone added, "we're not going to fight a series of defensive actions or delaying tactics. We're going to hunt them down, destroy their production facilities, and eliminate every trace of their presence in this galaxy. Your people need to be prepared for that level of commitment." Lyra felt her form stabilizing as understanding dawned. "You're not just offering to help defend the core worlds. You're offering to win the war." "Exactly," Stone confirmed. "The Terran Defense Force doesn't do half measures. If we're going to fight, we're going to end this permanently." 2 weeks later, the first human fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system, where the Void Hunters were strip mining the remains of 7 billion lives. Ambassador Lyra Vex watched from the bridge of the Alliance vessel Harmonies. Dreama's 1,200 human warships deployed in a formation that defied every principle of civilized warfare. Instead of maintaining safe distances and coordinated firing lines, the human ships spread out in a chaotic pattern that seemed to offer no mutual support. Instead of targeting the Void Hunter command vessels first, they seemed to be aiming at everything simultaneously. "Captain Chen," Lyra spoke into her comm unit, "your formation appears dangerously dispersed. Shouldn't you concentrate your firepower?" Chen's voice carried a note of predatory anticipation. "Ambassador, concentration is a luxury for species that have time to aim. We prefer to make sure there's nowhere for the enemy to run." The Void Hunters detected the human fleet and responded exactly as they had to every previous threat. They adapted their formations to counter the expected Alliance tactics, strengthened their shields against known weapon types, and prepared to add another victory to their perfect record. What happened next would be studied by military historians for generations. The human ships didn't fire energy weapons that could be adapted against. They fired kinetic projectiles, massive chunks of dense metal accelerated to significant fractions of light speed. But these weren't simple artillery shells. Each projectile contained dozens of smaller warheads that separated at the last moment, creating devastating cluster impacts that overwhelmed point defense systems. When the Void Hunters adapted their armor to deflect kinetic impacts, the humans switched to directed energy beams. When the enemy developed countermeasures for those, the humans deployed weapons that defied classification entirely: gravitational distortions that crushed ships from within, dimensional rifts that simply deleted sections of enemy vessels, and exotic matter bombs that turned armor into expanding clouds of superheated plasma. But the most shocking aspect of the battle wasn't the weapons, it was the tactics. Every time the Void Hunters began to adapt to human technology, the humans changed their entire approach. Ships that had been fighting as individual units suddenly coordinated into squadron formations. Vessels that had been using long-range bombardment switched to close-quarters combat. The human fleet fought like a living organism, constantly evolving and adapting faster than their mechanical enemies could compensate. "Impossible," Lyra whispered, watching as Void Hunter ships exploded in brilliant flashes across the tactical display. "They're adapting faster than the machines can learn." Captain Chen's voice crackled through the comm with barely contained satisfaction. "Ambassador, You're watching the difference between programmed adaptation and creative thinking. The void. Hunters learn from experience. Humans learn from imagination. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it was over, the Void Hunter force that had destroyed 17 star systems and defeated every Alliance fleet was nothing but expanding debris, clouds, and fading energy signatures. Admiral Stone's voice echoed across the combined fleet frequencies. All human vessels prepare for pursuit operations. We have enemy production facilities to eliminate and a galaxy to liberate. Remember, we don't stop until they're all gone. As the human fleet began its systematic hunt for the remaining Void Hunter forces, Ambassador Lyra Vex finally understood what her people had unleashed. They hadn't just called for help from a quarantined species. They had awakened predators who had spent 75 years learning to be perfect at the only thing that truly mattered: survival. The galaxy would indeed never be the same. But for the first time since the crisis began, Lyra believed it might actually survive.